Now let's get into our first discussion. Now, the people of Ozubulu in Anambra State, southeast Nigeria, are still in shock and grief over Sunday morning's attack at St. Philip's Catholic Church in the town.
Well, it was a Black Sunday, as what was supposed to be a holy sanctuary for worship was turned to a bloodbath when unidentified gunmen invaded the church and opened fire on the worshippers and killed 11 as well as injured scores of others. Now, the state governor, Willie Obiano, has dispelled rumors that the incident was a terror attack.
Now, in a special broadcast, Obiano said it was a gang war that had spilled over to the state from another African country. With more details of the heinous crime surfacing, certain Aloysius Ikegwonu, alias Bishop, an alleged drug baron, has been identified as the intended target of the attack.
We have in the studio the Director General of the International Institute of Professional Security, Tony Ofoyeton. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Nice to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Yes. Do we first off talk about how drug business is gradually giving Nigeria a bad name abroad?
Well, let me say the issue of drug and drug peddling is not new in the country, except for the fact that at a particular time when the leadership of NDLEA gave them a good chase, it reduced drastically. Now it got to an extent where, you remember there was a time we were listed as one of the major drug peddling countries in the world until they were able to do a good job. But recently, and especially from what we saw now, we now have been able to see that it's gradually coming back. And you would have also observed that in recent time, there have not been the type of push from the NDLA. We only hear pockets of arrest. We do. Of course, there have been arrests here and there. But the initial push that was attached to NDLA for the past 3-4 years has fallen down drastically. And I think this is the overall effect of such. All over the world, drug is more or less like when you talk about the crime of murder. It's a very heinous crime because apart from the fact that it destroys the economy of a country, it destroys the youth of a country. The magnitude of the destruction cannot be, it's not something we can even begin to analyze here, because you are talking of a generation that is to come being destroyed. That is one major effect of drug and drug peddling. However, having said so, there are many more of moral questions than the issue of the security challenges. Now, security challenges in the Ozubulu case is minimal compared to moral issues. Now, because the people you are talking about, one, they are not unknown to even the governor. They are not unknown to dignitaries in the state. They are not unknown to the priest of the church. They are not unknown to even the villagers. Now, the issue is this. If you know these people very well, they are major contributors in terms of donations, in social functions, in church buildings, in political functions and all those stuff like that. And you did not take pain to ask of their source of wealth. Now, because anytime you call them, they are always available to showcase their financial prowess. And now, at the end of the day, it is now. We are not talking about drugs. You are not. To me, I think it's a product of a failed society and a failed governance.
All right. You talked about the issue of the push, that there don't seem to be that kind of push right now. Or would it be that you don't have that kind of push right now because the work of the push the past 6, 7, 8 years has been effective, where drug and drug-related people have been rooted from Nigeria, so you don't have the situation is not as bad as it used to be?
Now, I agree with you to the extent that at the level of the height of the push, the drug business went down drastically. And coupled with the fact that some countries, they are noted for beheading drug peddlers. don't be caught. You are free to peddle drugs, you are free to carry it, swallow it, whatever you want to do. But the main thing is don't be caught. Because when you are caught, even your country cannot save you. And you've seen different examples. North Korea is one outstanding
Asian
example.
countries especially.
You know, it's one outstanding example. And they don't have apology for anybody. Don't even forget that the head of that North Korea presidency or whatever himself is one very interesting young
Kim
man.
Jong-un.
Yes, Kim Jong-un or whatever his name is. So, you know, the average dog peddler, they know that. Then there are some other countries like that. So at the level of that push, it was a good one that many drug peddlers, what they did was to relocate and re-strategize. That's what happened in most cases. Because one thing you must understand about business is that the level of risk determines the level of profit margin. Now, if you talk about big-time business, they also involve big-time risk. And that is the psychology of these young boys. That, look, you want to make it big, you take big risks. You die along the line, so be it. You are able to succeed, good. And unfortunately, we are in a country where we celebrate wealth more than moral values. It doesn't make any difference the type of integrity demand, whether there's integrity or not. You know, and I'm sorry to say, I'm not being tribalistic here, but I think our southeastern, especially the Igbos, the Ohanese need to do an integrity conference. I'm sorry to say this, but that's just the truth. If you go to the marketplace, you see a young man selling a fake product for you at the same price with the original, and is able to sweet-tongue you. You see all manner of pranks and antics in business world, and they dominate the business world. And if you ask them, they'll say, that is business.
But we can't say that it's just a particular tribe that does that.
No,
really.
But you are talking of a situation. Look, there are times we need to be frank about the truth. There's no need for us to be diplomatic at times. It is imperative for them to call themselves. And because what you are seeing in Ozubulu is a product of the worship of money. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other tribes, but you are talking of magnitude. When you are talking of percentage, it's higher, much more higher there.
All right, let's look at instances of, or even before we even look at some instances of mediation in that particular community. There is an attempt now, or some are saying that what really happened isn't drug-related, that they believe it's a terrorist attack on the people of that community, and of course, people from the eastern part of the country, where we have instances and people giving revelations that truly, even the governor has said it, and they're even some people are attacking the governor today now, saying that you shouldn't jump into conclusion and say that it is a drug war. But if you go to the social media of this particular person, has been mentioned, is fellow Igbo people abroad, where in the past months, abusing him and saying that he reneged on their agreement, so-called business they did. So, like, the handwritings were on the wall, but somehow nothing was done about it.
Now, let me tell you, as a security professional, if you have to go into investigation, you put all narratives and all variables, no matter how obscure it may sound, and no matter how remote you may think. Now, we started from the platform of what the government told us. I, as a person, when I heard that, the first professional response was, who was the governor within less than few hours to be able to determine the rationale behind an attack like that? One. Then secondly, if it was to be an assassination, assassins don't go to worship center and spray, unintended targets. That is another narrative. Secondly, when you are talking about assassinating a particular person, precursor to assassination, there must have been a background investigation, a background survey to know that the target is actually in the said place. Are you there with me? Mm-hmm. Now, since it's a worship center, the natural thing an assassin will do is to plant, an individual in the church. Now, there will be a communication to say that this person is in the church or is not in the church at that point in time. Now, that is the way it operates. Are you there with me? I'm talking from a professional perspective now. Now, but to hear that during worship service, somebody came to the church, looked for his target, didn't get his target, and the next thing was to spray people. It doesn't gel professionally. But maybe to manage information.
One of the information we got was that his parents, his father especially, was there. Because they saw his car parked in the compound of the church, the car of the guy. So they thought he was in the church.
Now you see, that narrative would have been very apt if it was the father alone or his immediate family that was actually killed. It's possible in drug war, you want to pass a message across. The family of such can be the major target.
So it is even possible that the father was the target at that point to make a point.
Well, it's possible, but the good thing is that since there's already a human face to this whole scenario, it behoves on the police now to do their own job properly, be able to apprehend the human faces now, because name has been mentioned. And since names have been mentioned, it simply means that they are not ghosts. They are not unidentified gunmen. I hope you understand. But, we also have some confusion because the police said it was one person. Now, the information we are hearing, gunmen.
So there are conflicts there.
Well, one of the information of one of those that were there, the eyewitness report was that there were many, but they were outside the church. There was one person that entered the church and sprayed the people inside, but gunmen were in the compound of the church, preventing people from escaping to show maximum damage.
Well, that is the unfortunate part of this whole scenario. And, from what I will just say is, in a situation like this, the churches themselves need to look inward. If the church had had a CCTV camera, it would have helped the situation a lot. It doesn't prevent crime from occurring. It helps in unraveling crime and criminality when they eventually occur. And it could also serve as a deterrent, because if the criminal that is not hardened knows that there is a surveillance camera within a particular protected vicinity, it's a major restraint. Now, these are areas that churches and worship centers should really begin to look at. And I think we have said this severally, we have shouted severally that the worship now is no longer like the worship of the 60s and the 70s when you have your churches wide open. No, it doesn't work like that again, because it's a different ball game entirely now. All right,
Tony, in this situation that happened now, the villagers, from the reports we got from yesterday, a lot of them are living in fear. Is there a likelihood that there could be a reprisal in this case?
Now the question is, who is going to attack who now? The issue is the church members if it is drug war, they needn't be afraid. But if it is terrorism, there is perpetual fear. That means that they now have to look inward to see how they can provide security for themselves. And if the police is able to cooperate with them to give them security. Now, there are two different scenarios. If it's drug war, they needn't be afraid of anything. Once you are not part of the drug world, you have no business with them. And they don't have business with you.
But when it comes to collateral impact, some persons just died who were not part of the drug war.
Well, unfortunately, life could be so unfair at times. You go along the road, you are not a driver, you don't have a vehicle, somebody that has a vehicle come and hit you. What's your offense? That's how life is. We sympathize with the family of those that have lost their loved ones. It could be very painful. We can only analyze here. We don't know the pain they go through, but we can imagine it. And the best we could do at this moment is to really sympathize with them and tell them that whatever vacuum that their loved ones have left, that God himself will fill up the vacuum and console them. No word can console them. It's only God that can heal them. And I pray that God will heal them.
All right, now let's look at this whole incident and the need for the NDLEA now to step up, because when you talk about drug business, drug pushing, many have said that prominent people could be involved, well-to-do people could be involved, because it involves a huge amount of money, and only prominent people can be able to afford it, be able to push, sponsor people's trips abroad, to swallow cocaine for them, or other kinds of drugs. So how important is it for NDLEA to step up, and then the will to do this effectively and honestly on the side of the people?
I think what NDLA to me need to do is to do the needful, irrespective of whose all is God. As it is now, I must tell you that drug war is as dangerous as terrorism. What it means is that the leadership at the executive level will now have to look at who has that guts. During the era of Kwajafa, I don't know if you remember, that was the era where you talk about the height of drug war in this country. And he was able to achieve a lot at his own level. Their lives were always at stake and always, and they did very well to be able to bring down the list, or to be able to remove Nigeria from the list of major drug peddling countries in the world and all those stuff like that. So it is all about leadership. It's not about, because when you have a determined leader who is not compromised, because if the drug barons, if they know your price, forget about how mongoose it may sound like. The first thing is, what is this man's price? Once they know your price, they buy you over. And once they buy you over, you can only be chasing little boys that don't have any major connection and using that to come and deceive the press.
And they have the money.
I hope you understand. Because the major people, look at this country. I'm sure you remember a time you are talking about extradition of a senator. I'm sure. No, I mean, you just talk about extradition of a senator on drug-related matter. We are talking of in a national parliament of a country. What else do you want me to say, for goodness sake? It behoves on the executive to look inward. It's not a matter of, because no matter the analysis, it is the executive level that will be able to stand this, because it could be very daring. But if the executive is able to identify who can do it and give that person the necessary backing, they will run out of the country.
Let's bring in Foladele to give us a response on social media and what people are saying. Foladele, good morning. Morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Because of time, I'll just quickly run through this. Ramadan Buba Jorofi says, Ozubulu Catholic massacre is a rare picture of xenophobia of South Africa. Drugs cartel are troublesome. Obik says, ruling government should not be blamed for Ozubulu attack, but people that provided shield for drug traffickers. Freedom is expensive says, I'm a super Igbo. I have my doubts about the NPF report on Ozubulu, but as a Catholic, I'm ashamed that the priest accepted a church built with drugs money. Sir Charles says, Ozubulu is the community with the highest rate of young boys into drugs in Nigeria. Kelly says, the Kinshatilo, and that's I must get money factor without questioning the source of wealth, has played out in Anambra. Drugs, wire, all not the same. Sad aftermath. Kunle says, cultists and drug wars taken to our house of worship is the worst I've heard in recent times. Hashtag Anambra. And Adekunle Aliu says, it is sad that we have lost our moral values. Even in religion, drug lord built a church and society accepted it without questions. And someone had a response to that and said, so are we supposed to investigate the source of every money that is used for philanthropy in the society before we accept it? Tony, can you quickly address that? So someone is saying, someone built a church with drug money, and then someone responding.
Let me tell you something. I know of a church in this Lagos. It's a major church. If you pay any tithe without them knowing your source of income, they will not accept it.
But how many people can do that?
I know of a church in this Lagos. It's one of the biggest churches you can talk of in this country. I hope you understand that. Yes, and I'm talking of Deeper Life Bible Church. If you pay any money without them knowing the source of your income, no matter the money, they will not accept it. All right. So it's a product of who is at the helm of affair. What is your value? Is it money or the kingdom of God?
The values and morals actually are achievable, and we look forward to that.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Tony Ofoyeton, Director General, International Institute of Professional Security. Thank you for coming on the program.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.